Hello, everybody. Welcome to the broadcast. I am Rachel Johnston. I'm also known as Attorney Johnston. So thanks for coming. It's getting very, very hot there in Minnesota. Well, I don't know if you've heard the latest, but a Somali alien was just arrested. Now, he has a prior conviction for welfare fraud in Canada. Apparently and allegedly, he has ties with Governor Tim Walz as well as U.S. Representative Ilhan Omar. Now, he has pictures. They found pictures of him with them. So watch this clip.
All right, this news just breaking moments ago. Fox News has obtained photos of one of the Somali illegal immigrants wrapped up in the Minnesota fraud scandal, posing with several high-profile Minnesota Democrats, including Congresswoman Ilhan Omar and Governor Tim Walz. The man pictured is Abdul Dahir Ibrahim. He entered the country in 2000 and has had an order for removal since 2004. He also has a prior conviction in Canada for asylum and welfare fraud. ICE tells Fox News Ibrahim was granted temporary protected status for 10 years, but should have never been eligible. We are going to have more on this in our next hour.
Now, my next clip is a clip regarding Governor Walz. Now, he's definitely having to defend himself. He's under investigation, so he's having to answer some really hard questions. Let's watch this clip.
Minnesota Governor Tim Walz trying to redirect some of the attention he's getting over the COVID fraud scandal that unfolded under his watch. So how's he doing that? Trump derangement syndrome.
You commit crimes, you go to jail. Doesn't matter what your race is. We've acknowledged that this is serious, needs to stop. It is stopping. People are continuing to go to prison. But I want to be very clear. You can do that without being racist and vile and putting people at risk.
Well, Republican Minnesota Speaker of the House, Lisa DeMuth, who's running for governor against Walz, is not letting him get away with that.
AAA bond rating is not what criminals look at if they're going to come and do criminal behavior here in the state. What I would say is a well-run state, a generous state, and a prosperous state. But a well-run state does not attract criminal behavior. It means that the dollars that are collected from taxpayers go to the people that need it the most, not to fraudsters. I don't think we're done yet. I think this is probably the tip of the iceberg, and I've heard others say that also.
Well, now investigators are tracking the web of fraud to other Minnesota Democrats, such as Congresswoman Ilhan Omar. Many of the suspects linked to the scheme live in her district, including a restaurant owner who hosted events for her. He has since been convicted of stealing $12 million in COVID funds. Oh, your friends, your buddies, those people who love to have you over. Kim Strassel wrote for the Wall Street Journal this: the system itself, the government machine, is broken. It's heaving, duplicative federal state programs, awash in forms and bureaucracies and ancient mainframes, has already suffered Soviet-style collapse. Beautifully written, and Kennedy, oh so true.
It's very true. And so what you're seeing is, it's interesting because someone like Tim Walz should have looked at Doge, especially if he has national aspirations, and said, that's exactly what we need to do. We need to streamline government to make it more efficient to help people who really need it, as opposed to the corrupt people who are incentivized to come to the United States and take as much as they can to enrich themselves, which is what these people in his home state were doing. So he wasn't going to Doge his home state of Minnesota because he also was being enriched by their political donations, even though he had people within his own government, whistleblowers, who were saying this is going on, it is systemic corruption. This is wrong. Those people were not only relocated, sometimes they were fired and retaliated against. And now they have the greatest case of all of how Republicans, conservatives, and libertarians can make government smaller, because a smaller government is much less likely to be corrupted by people who are in it for their self-interest alone.
Look, I want to go there on this immigration topic that's at the heart of this, because the bulk of this fraud was within the Somali community, which Minnesota has a very large Somali community. Many of them came from East Africa for their social programs. And there have been other types of problems, though, with that community, and it has to do with terrorism and their ties to ISIS and al-Shabaab outside and inside the United States. A lot of this money apparently was funneled, and that's been part of this investigation, to terrorism.
Well, yeah, and it raises questions about people we're importing to the United States from these countries that are plagued with terrorism or political instability as well. How much can we flag these individuals coming into our country? And in Kennedy, those are the things Governor Tim Walz should have done, but he didn't. And we know he didn't because we have the Minnesota Department of Health Human Services, more than 400 of these employees on X, pointing the finger directly at Governor Walz saying, hey, you knew about this. And instead, you went after the whistleblowers. You allowed this to happen to your country. And we all remember President Trump when he announced in 2015 walking down the golden escalator, and he said other countries aren't sending their best. They're taking advantage of us. And this underscores this point. Like, we had our kindness of the Americans to have these people come into the United States of America, and then they steal from us. They take advantage of us. They steal from needy kids as well. And I think on immigration, both legal and illegal, we should be asking ourselves, does this benefit the United States? And I think when you look at this, the answer is no. Or even when you look at Minnesota and the Somali population, I think about 40% are living in poverty. So are they taking more than they're giving to society? And I think these are the broader questions we need to ask ourselves as a country.
Yeah, that's a great point.
That is a good point. What will the people that are coming here, what will they contribute to America instead of just taking? And I agree with the speaker there. We open our doors to let them come in, and then they steal from us. Not a good thing. Now, my last clip is an interview. Will Cain, Fox News, is interviewing Walter Hudson, who is a state representative of Minnesota. So he asked him questions about Governor Walz. Let's just watch this.
Minnesota State Representative and member of the House Fraud Prevention and State Oversight Committee, Walter Hudson. Walter, thanks for being with us here today. You just heard from your governor. Is he accountable for cracking down on this fraud scheme and putting people, as he said, in jail?
Well, he's certainly responsible. Whether or not he's going to be held accountable is ultimately going to be up to the voters of Minnesota. All of this has taken place under his watch. And from the testimony that we've heard in the House Fraud Committee here in the state of Minnesota, along with many anecdotes that support the things that we've heard officially, it's very clear that this administration has not taken the problem seriously.
You know, there is a Twitter account, Representative Hudson, I know that you have seen. It has been under the name of something like Minnesota Housing Services, and it has been posting, going very aggressively at Governor Walz, saying that not only is he responsible, but he allowed it to continue. I think they likened it to a cookie jar that continued to get refilled with cookies. Now, that Twitter account was taken down momentarily this afternoon. You posted, by the way, you asked Elon Musk for why that would be taken down. Do you know who runs this account? Is this employees in the state of Minnesota? Who is behind this account that is really pointing the finger at Governor Walz?
Well, listen, I can't speak to the authenticity of the account, but I can tell you my perception, which is that it's most likely being run by actual employees of the Department of Human Services here in Minnesota. And the reason why I believe that is because the things that they've been posting are completely consistent with not only the things that we've heard as members of the House Fraud Prevention and State Agency Oversight Committee here in Minnesota, but also with the anecdotal testimony that we've heard from folks, whistleblowers who've spoken to our members and particularly our chair in person. And so the picture that they paint of Tim Walz and his administration being at best lackadaisical and incompetent, and at worst, to some degree or another, complicit in this fraud scheme here in Minnesota, tracks very consistently with everything that I've personally observed in my capacity as a state representative here in this state.
And that's the more important question. It is curious. You would like to know, I would like to know the authenticity of whoever is publishing these accounts at this Twitter handle, which we should note is now back up under a different name. Now it's going under the name Minnesota Staff Fraud Reporting Commentary, and it's back up now. But the more important question is what they're saying on this account accurate? Because it indicts Governor Waltz, as you mentioned, not just as lax, but complicit to some degree in allowing this fraud to continue, and suggests that Kamala Harris was warned that this was taking place in Minnesota under the watch of Governor Waltz. Now, you're telling me you've heard these exact things from employees within the state of Minnesota.
Absolutely. Certainly members of our committee have spoken with folks who work in DHS and other departments who have reported that they've been retaliated against, that they've been institutionally discouraged from taking action in response to suspected fraud. And of course, if you go back, we can recall the leaked audio of Keith Ellison meeting with folks who would end up becoming defendants, and some of them later convicted in the Feeding Our Future scandal. Very similar, very indicative of the culture here in Minnesota, where the concern, there wasn't a single question asked by Attorney General Keith Ellison on that tape about the people actually being served. You know, tell me about the kids who are getting fed. He didn't ask about that at all. His concern was entirely keeping these folks in business, and his words, fighting the state agencies, which, by the way, are his clients. He's responsible for representing them as their lawyer. And here he is meeting with folks who at the time were suing his clients and talking smack about them. That's you get disbarred doing that in the private sector.
Yeah. And it seems like, based upon that television appearance by the governor, the primary concern going forward is ensuring that there's not too much focus on the Somali community in Minneapolis, not on the crimes, not on the victims, but ensuring that there's not too much focus on the Somali community in Minnesota. State Representative Hudson, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Will.
All right.
Well, I believe by the time they complete this investigation, I believe that they're going to discover that it's probably more than $1 billion. That's just probably just what they can see initially. We don't know how far and how deep this goes, but I am so grateful for President Trump and also Attorney General Bondi and her staff and all other people, part of law enforcement. I am so glad that they're looking into this, because we are taxpayers. And I would especially be concerned for the people that reside in Minnesota who weren't aware of this. State funds, and some of that money could have been triggered, I'm pretty sure, came down from the federal government. That means that you and I contributed some of that taxpayers' dollars. So I'll keep you posted. As we get more information, I will update you. And that's all, folks. So thank you so much and have a great, great evening. Take care now. Bye-bye.